Welcome to Motorcycle Journeys. This is my 2 cents, where I give my take on the topics in the motorcycle space, just my opinion, nothing more, nothing less. Today's topic is retro ADVs, so first things first, let's check what is retro anyway. And what is retro? Wiki. And let's see, retro style, that's it. Retro style is imitative or consciously derivative of lifestyle trends or art forms from the past. So now you know. What does this mean actually? It means that they're gonna take something brand new and make it look like yesteryear. To tug on those nostalgia strings or remind people of their childhoods. Or just to get all your money. And you see, there's a lot of things they do it with. Fashion, cars, motorcycles, furniture. If it can be sold, it probably has a retro version. But why retro? Well, as I stated before, companies want all of the money. If it can be developed from a platform that already exists without great investments, both in time and money, it will happen. All motorcycle enthusiasts love old-timey bikes. They go back to a more pure and honest age, a more mechanically pure and honest age. So if a company exists for several decades, then they have a back catalog of old models they can use to make a retro motorcycle. They will have to develop an engine, of course, that looks the part, and then start building a bike that resembles that glorious model of yesteryear. Some brands' entire lineup exists solely out of retro models. I'm looking at you, Indian and Harley Davidson. Their whole brand identity comes from looking retro. They have modern tech, but the looks and the image that people have of the brand is totally that of yesteryear. Retro means in this case the real deal. That's how their customers perceive that. Does retro sell bikes? It unmistakably does. Again, look at Indian and also look at Triumph. Harley, not so much. It seems to have dwindling sales figures year after year. But when you look at Triumph, the success of the Bonneville lineup is undeniable. The Bonnevilles are just lovely bikes. They look amazing and they are obviously well-crafted bikes with great attention to detail. And a lovely ride to boot. These things make the Bonnevilles a bona fide sales success. Sadly, I am too tall to fit on a Bonneville, otherwise I would own one. It's obvious that a lot of bikers love the way old bikes looked in the past, but cannot deal with the realities that come with owning an old-timer. Maintenance, repairs, that's all the first things that come to mind, but also getting spare parts and stuff like that. Stuff that used to be readily available back in the day, but now gets rather scarce. It all takes away from the riding experience. And here fits the retro market perfectly. You can have old-timey looks without the headaches that an old bike brings. We often put a past on a pedestal, but let's face it, we all want modern conveniences. What retro bikes do we have? We have the custom market, of course, and nearly every brand has a retro naked in its lineup. A handful of brands offer a scrambler model, and Yamaha even introduced a retro sports bike a few months back. You can say that the retro market is small but surprisingly thriving. Aren't there any retro ADVs? Well, it's kind of a bummer. Ducati has the Desert X. It looks the part, but underneath all the plastic bodywork you have basically a tuned down Multistrada, a very complex piece of kit, not to mention the price tag. Same goes for MV Agusta, a very expensive ADV that evokes the look of the 90s era adventure bikes. How beautiful these bikes are and how well these bikes ride, retro or vintage, they are not. A lot of people try to advocate that the Triumph 1200 Scrambler is a unique old school ADV, but I disagree. I've ridden one for a few hours and it's an amazing bike. It rides well everywhere, on paved roads or on unpaved roads, it just goes. But it lacks any form of wind protection and that disqualifies it as an adventure bike. I must admit that the Scramblers come way closer to being retro than most ADV bikes. For example, the BMW Scrambler and Urban GS have a genuine retro engine. The engine in itself is nearly 20 years old at this point. So where does that leave the bikers that love the look of the ADVs from the 80s and early 90s? There is one brand that comes to the rescue. Actually, it's two brands, but more on that later. Moto Guzzi and the V85 TT. Not exactly a name that takes us back to the glorious history of the Dakar Rally or jerks at your heartstrings, but leave it to Moto Guzzi to do it with style and go against the grain. It is unmistakably an ADV bike, and very retro looking one at that. The dual headlights, the trellis frame, the high exhaust and to boot an air-cooled engine with around 80 horsepower. I know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but leave it to the Italians to build a capable and purposeful bike and make it into a thing of beauty. To me, this bike is a looker. And for 2024, it gets variable valve timing and a smoother transmission. Basically, she still looks like something older, but with refined engine mechanics. I said that there were two companies building genuine retro ADVs, but that's only partially true. Imagine my surprise when a few months back a motorcycle appeared on my screen that was very pleasing to my eye pussies. A bike based on a Royal Enfield nonetheless, built by a company called Wildfire. Basically, they turned a Royal Enfield 650 into an 850 ADV bike. And it looks the part, no doubt. Very retro, and it has a souped up retro engine to boot. It looks awesome. The 650 engine has a big bore kit, it's an 850 now, and the styling takes us right back to the glory days of the Dakar. It looks like an early 90s ADV bike. You can say that my eye pussies were very pleased. Sadly enough, this is a one-off. There are no plans to take this into production. So for now, we're stuck with the Himalayan 450. There is a 650 Scrambler on the way, and perhaps in the future we could see a 650 ADV bike, but don't get your hopes up. So that's it for this video. What do you guys think? Would you buy a retro ADV bike? Would you like to see more retro ADV bikes? Let me know in the comments below. Like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you guys down the road.